And I'll say there's something to be said about when your child wants to come to school
Yeah.
and they're sick and they want to come and you have to say, no, you cannot go today. That does not happen.
So, Miss Kristen, thanks for sitting down.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Glad to
for
be here.
all the years and time you put in to the kids and the school here. Were you part of the very founding of the school? When
No,
was the school
not
founded?
that long ago. We've been here for a little over 30 years. And
Oh,
so you had like Janie Newton and Joppa, Buckner and Claire was one of the founding, those were founding teachers.
okay, yeah.
And then, so there were a whole wave of these pioneers who came in and started to set up shop. And then as they kind of grew, different teachers came and went. So when I came, it was, I had Miss Evie, it was my child's teacher, and Miss Hasia was her very first year.
Okay, so you were a parent first.
So I was a parent, yeah.
Okay.
So which is how, like many of us, how I came to Waldorf. So our children, they bring us here. So I had to go back, like I have a master's degree in expressive therapy. So I was working kind of in the mental health realm, family and children's, and in different schools, and had a child and knew that this early attachment, these like formative years of birth to 3 were critical. And so I decided to stay home. I kind of cut back to part-time and then realized, I just wanted to be home while my daughter was that young. So in that span, I met the enrollment director at the time who was doing a big outreach fair and got the information, and it looked like it was like right up, my alley. So I was talking to my mom about it, who was a former teacher too, and she taught 3rd grade and then taught preschool for years. And her whole, focus was play-based education, and really had this mindset of process versus product, which was, different in those times. So I kind of grew up with that. And so I knew when I was looking at schools for my children that I wanted something that was similar. So of course I had to research every single, because there's a lot of great programs in Louisville that are play-based. And when I got to Waldorf, it was different than some of the others. And I liked bits and pieces about all of them. But for me, this holistic approach that we use at the Waldorf School seemed it was more relevant to kind of the direction I wanted to go. So I started in parent-child and so this will be funny. So Rob was actually coming on as a teacher. And so he was in some of the initial classes because he was the extended care director at the time.
Okay.
And he had a young child too. And that was kind of formative, I think, for so many of us here as teachers to be a part of the school during that time. So, so I came on then and loved it. And when a kindergarten assistant position opened up, I decided, well, she's 4, I'll send her to school and assist in a different classroom, and we can kind of I'll learn and parent at the same time. And then I just never looked back. It was kind of a career switch, but similar in so many ways. So yeah, I just kind of taught parent-child classes. I helped in some of the other classes, went to training, and then ended up now teaching kindergarten.
Have you been in kindergarten and early childhood throughout your career, or have you been in the grades some as well?
I did not teach in the grades,
Okay.
no. But just having a child who went through the program, and you have some familiarity with the
Right.
developmental stages and stuff.
Can you talk a little bit more about the holistic approach that you mentioned?
Yeah. So here at Waldorf School, like we're looking at the children's physical, cognitive, emotional, social, and spiritual health. And so one of the things that I like is that you put equal emphasis on all of that. And so in a society that really emphasizes, say, intellectualism and that cognitive piece, I knew that there's so much more. We're complex human beings, and that doesn't define success. And you can look at so many books that have been written, and like that documentary, A Race to Nowhere. So that was out, several years ago, but it was a lot about standardized testing, and it was looking at adolescents, but they backed it up, and they saw how as academics are pushed lower and lower, this like competitive atmosphere is created and children are so stressed to meet these standards on their test scores
Yeah.
because that dictates if you're a success or not,
Right.
getting into the right school or, and there's, how do we define success as, something like that? And most of the successful people that I know, they're happy because they can have like a genuine relationship with someone else or they love what they do. It doesn't have to look like we're in Harvard, all of us, or
Right.
doctors and lawyers. I mean, we really want to value the human being and all that it's capable of. So if you want to go on and be, I don't know, a plumber or a car mechanic, that is awesome if that's what your gifts are and you're really good at putting things together and figuring that out. Those are super valid professions.
So thankful for our good mechanic.
Yeah, and you can't, they're irreplaceable.
Yeah.
So there's so many different ways to look at that. So anyway, so you have that intellectualism and you have this competitive drive that we all have to be better than, everyone else, this individualistic sort of thing. And so here I found a community where you're lifting everyone up and you realize in a classroom that these friends are really good maybe at drawing. These ones are really great at math. This one can run super fast. And you can celebrate that and learn from them. And instead of becoming like I have to get that top score or win the race, you can all contribute and celebrate that you all have a role and you belong.
Yeah.
So that was key. And then just the spiritual emphasis is not necessarily like a religion, but it's like understanding that you're more than what you look like on the surface. So who are you deep inside? What are your interests? What is your purpose? And I feel like the education is really helping children become more confident in who their unique being is. And if you have that inner confidence and you can recognize, well, I like this, I'm interested in that, I want to pursue this path, you're going to be a lot more successful than if someone tells you, well, you're good at this, you ought to do this, and you do it, and then you hate it, and then you wasted all this time, right? So it was sort of like, okay, if I can let go a little bit and kind of let my child unfold, which is a weird word to use, but it really is. You're not forcing them. You're letting them show you who they are.
Yeah.
And that to me is irreplaceable because it's not about leaving here and being the top of the class. It's about being a kind, thoughtful, compassionate person who knows their worth and knows, that the potential is there. They put their mind to it.
Can you speak to that though? I have this feeling, or I've encountered this in conversations where um, prospective parents perceive that because there isn't this competitive nature driven towards the testing, that children are not going to be prepared for high school or college. And I mean, I know personally of very successful high school students from Waldorf. But what would you say to a parent who is maybe skeptical of this model that it's going to lead to a productive or successful child in their higher education?
Yeah, I think we worry as parents, and especially as American parents, because we feel like they should be at a certain place, and if they're not there, then there's something wrong. And I think there's a wisdom to each human being, and they learn at a different rate and a different time. And so if you can try to let them lead the way, so there is some sense of agency there, that they're more likely to love learning than have it forced on them. So if they're not quite ready to read and they're in second grade, instead of panicking and sending them to lots and lots of tutors, which I can understand that would be hard for parents, you can kind of take a back seat and just watch and encourage and slowly let them show you how they can learn the best. And I'm not saying don't look at there. Of course, everyone has, challenges, but I feel like those challenges actually make you more resilient. So we don't like our children to struggle, and we don't want them to get behind. And so sometimes it's really a gift to let them kind of figure it out on their own. And then those lessons as you know in your life too, right? When
Mhm.
you learned it yourself, they stick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
We really try to handhold a lot as American parents. I feel like to the next marker, the next benchmark, and the child ultimately does get left behind in all of that.
right.
It's what you said earlier about the focusing on the process instead of the outcome. It's
Hmm.
isn't that still pretty much at odds with most of the way that our educational system functions?
Yes. Yeah, because we're totally like, we're looking all at the end result,
Hmm.
teaching to the test.
Hmm.
So here it's you're teaching how to figure it out, how to be an inquiry based kind of model of education.
Hmm.
So, I wonder what would happen if I did this, or what would it look like if I did that? And you experiment, and in that, you make a ton of mistakes. But that's what all the great inventors did.
Exactly.
They didn't just automatically come up with it right answer the first
Yeah.
time. So that whole process of just trying things and being okay with that and making a mess and starting over and finding, finding a path through that.
Hmm.
So valuable.
Yeah. Something that it stands out really apparent to me, and it I feel like it is a part of what you're communicating here, outside of the education, but is in discipline.
Hmm.
In Waldorf, I have become a better parent because of the the disciplinary, not measures, but means or encouragements that I experience here. And I wonder if can you talk a little bit about how discipline is integrated into this like non-competitive structure? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think like I could start with the young child. So in early childhood, every phase is different in how you're going to discipline. So early on, like really the adults are setting the environment up and setting the stage for the child so that they can just simply be. So you're setting like a rhythm, like some kind of structure to their day. And they don't have the tools to tell you, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed over here, or gosh, I'm hungry. You have to be a sort of a detective and figure out what is my child trying to tell me through their behavior? What do they need? And if you can figure out those needs and find a way to meet that, then your day is going to go a lot smoother. But as adults, we've kind of put our own, again, that intellectualism on top of that. So we think a certain way, but that's not how children think. So it's being letting go of the emotional piece of that parenting and just looking at the structure of the day. What are your practical needs? When are we going to eat? When are we going to go to bed? When are we going to take a bath? And just kind of planning from there so that they kind of have a sense of rhythm and security in that. And then you're going to have a lot less behavioral problems. But when those do come up, then, trying to figure out, okay, you have to stay calm yourself because they're imitating everything that you do. So you can maybe look calm on the outside, but internally you might be feeling different. The child will pick up on that, and that's a weird sort of mixed message they get.
Hmm.
Like, and that also can send them, in a tailspin. So part of it is just being guiding that ship. You're doing a lot of the work, and then when they get a little older, like maybe 9-ish, you're gonna let them start to have some more control into what those consequences are. So if there is, you know, a boundary that gets crossed, how do you make that right? So it's more of like a reparative gesture rather than you're in trouble and you're punished and this is what's going to happen. It becomes more of making it right. So you knocked over, you messed up someone's work or something. How can you help that and repair that relationship and kind of be in, a better place with that? And then again, as you get older, then it just becomes more and more like you're giving the reins over, so to speak, to the adolescent so that they, again, they have to learn through those natural consequences, but also like you can have rules in your house. And this is how, things are family values. And this is how we're going to behave together and how I want you to talk to me and kind of take it from there. It's a respectful kind of parenting. So then you can problem solve with them as they get older and they're more able to do that. I don't know, that's a really quick walkthrough. of those phases, but we forget and we treat them like they're older.
Yeah.
And so it's remembering that, oh, we couldn't always think like
Oh,
this.
we treat
And
them like they're all the same, like it's all the same
yes,
developmentally, and that's what stands out the most for me is that I really see children being treated age appropriately, which didn't even cross my mind, honestly,
yeah,
that that's a reality because, you grow up in an authoritarian, disciplinarian, and for those who, I think, I've heard people say that Waldorf seems like a school without discipline, but that's just because culturally we don't have much of a context for the kind of child-led discipline doesn't even feel like the right word, does it?
it is it. Well, discipline's really like a disciple, like you're following,
Hmm.
and so you're guiding. You're not telling them what to do and how to do it
Hmm.
necessarily, but you're showing them how to work through these conflicts and how to get what you want in a kind, respectful way, but realizing that, other people have wants too. And we have to sometimes compromise
Hmm.
and we have to problem solve and take turns. And it is true. Like you can have everyone sitting at their desk doing this one thing in their own little area and never interact. And maybe that's successful, but it, in the whole scheme of things, they're not learning how to interact and how to care for somebody. So there are a lot of conflicts. It's not all peaceful, calm all of the time because those challenges, when they come up, are so critical of those teachable moments.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can look chaotic, but there's some order in the chaos and there's some benefit from seeing something kind of rough and bringing order to it,
Yes.
figuring that all out and pulling it back in. So there's a big emphasis on like self-regulation. It takes a very, very long time. And to remember that it's not going to happen overnight, but we also have to kind of guide them through that. What tools are going to work? So for one child, you're right. I mean, this might work in this way, but for another child, that might not be the best solution. So there, you have to find their uniqueness with the goal that we're all going to learn how to self-regulate. But the technique might be different.
Can't help but wonder how this contributes to overall mental health of the adults that grow out of this upbringing, because self-regulation is so central to that.
Oh yeah, I mean, we all know many adults who really struggle with that, and depression and anger management and all kinds of things. So that's the beauty of the education too, is there's so many different ways. So you have story that gives you this insight into human development and how to interact with people. Then you have artistic, from theater to drawing and painting to form drawing. Like there are tools that we're using two dimensionally and these other skills where you're acting them out that show you ways of being that you might not necessarily understand. So you get to try these things out, and those become avenues and as adults that you can use for self-expression or meditation. You're teaching that so that when you're an older adult, then you have something to give back to the other generations, and then you have this spaciousness to feel gratitude. You feel like you want to give something back, leave a legacy. So it kind of comes full circle. And if you have that sense of purpose and that sense of meaning that comes with being alive, then it kind of protects you from later in life feeling like, what was it all
Oh, yeah.
for? Um, and you're kind of alone and isolated. And if you've been so like, trying to be ambitious and one leg up, it's going to be tricky to find some peace.
No, no. It's just you're providing me with such a wider lens to look at how this benefits our children. So how have you changed over the years by exposure to Waldorf? Because it's like first as a parent, right? You became a different parent,
Yes.
and then as a teacher, like how's it impacted your personal growth?
Well, so many ways. So as I think teachers come into this too, and it's not easy. and you're kind of learning along with your students, so you can go back and you can repair some things as parents too, right? It different, I don't know, behaviors might trigger you or something. So you're learning how to like do a lot of inner development and really take these children. They walk with us. Like I think about them all the time, and I try to figure out, what makes them tick. What can I do that would encourage this child? How can I support that child? And in doing that, it makes you a better observer, I think, of human behavior. And it also helps you to be more compassionate because I'm looking at it from their point of view. Well, how would I feel if this happened? And what might I want to do? And because I work with young children and, they can't tell us, then I have to try on all of these different scenarios and figure out some possibilities there. So it has like expanded that, I guess, that social emotional piece of being with other people, but also with your colleagues. There's, you have to figure out how to support one another, how to encourage one another, how to speak up when there's something on your mind or you don't agree with something. And this education gives you some tools to try to help in that realm too. So it's just being confident in who you are and what you're bringing to the classroom, because there's no one right path to Waldorf teaching either. So every classroom is going to look a little different because every teacher has their own strengths and their own aptitudes for different things. So you're bringing your special touch, and maybe that you learn something from somebody else because they have another way of looking at it, and it just becomes richer over time. So there's just a lot of work and growth that comes along with this transformation, because this idea that the children transform, it doesn't stop when you graduate. It's like your whole life. So there's never an end to it. I mean, a good artist is never satisfied with their work, right? There's always something they could improve upon and do a little bit differently. So like for me, like I guess when I first started as an assistant, it's a lot of like cleaning, cooking, picking up after things. After a while, I was like, wow, I feel like Cinderella, but there's no Prince Charming coming. This is like a lot of drudgery. It's a lot of work. And I really didn't value that. And so that was like early on, I'm like, oh, I can bring sweeping this classroom. I can bring joy into that. I can bring, a sense of, I don't know, something that is light and happy. And then the children want to come and help because it looks like fun. And then you start to notice like, oh, I can infuse this kind of interest in everything that I do. And when you do that, people want to be around you. Yeah. People want to learn. So that was kind of eye-opening for me, that everything that you do, even those things that seem like chores, are pretty important. Oh. Those practical things that I'd rather just, someone else do for me, like that is key. So now I really enjoy that and can find, the time to do those things that I wouldn't necessarily have wanted to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So that's pretty, I don't know, pretty different, pretty eye-opening.
So it's the little things, right?
It's the little things. And then it happens over time. And then you notice like, oh, like I used to be like this, and now that doesn't bother me at all. And I can, I'm calmer, I'm, more patient. And I think my family notices that. And people that you're close to, they can sense a difference. And then it makes you want to like work even harder. And those practices just become kind of normal for you. The rhythm, it builds strength. So if there are things that you have that you kind of look at in a rhythmic way, this time of year we do this, and then we do this, then we do that, it makes your life flow, and it's a lot easier to get the things done that need to get done and also have more fun.
I'm starting to see that.
Yeah.
Didn't have the rhythm until Waldorf.
No, a lot of people don't. If you're not naturally rhythmic, there are people who are very organized and rhythmic. That was not me. Right. That will never be me, But now I see that there are some, basic practices and some tools so I can embrace that a little bit more. And I see where that's impacted me in a way that I want to do that now. But I'm still kind of the creative mess kind of person who enjoys that and, gets a lot of value in, you know, just running by the, seat of my pants.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
there's some,
I can identify.
yeah, that artistic soul or whatever.
So, would you mind talking about your daughter a little bit?
Yeah.
Like, where's she at now? What's she done
Yeah.
with
So
Waldorf?
she was here from parent child through eighth grade and graduated and went on to high school, which of course is a big adjustment. She wasn't used to taking tests. She wasn't used to opening a locker. She wasn't used to doing homework. And so at first, it was kind of funny. Like the first couple months were an adjustment for sure, but it was like she didn't understand how to do the homework, so she just didn't do it. And then she realized, oh, it doesn't matter if I get a wrong answer or not. It's just I have to put something down. So we had to sort of, unfortunately, teach her that, in this setting, this is what's expected. And I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but they're looking to see that have answers. Doesn't matter. And then, the good thing about being in a small school and having teachers who were really interested and wanted to help you learn, she loves talking to adults. And so she was one of those students who would say, hey, I really don't understand what's happening here in this history class. Can I stay after class? And the teachers were so excited and happy that they had a student who was interested, in their subject or trying to improve their grade or whatever, or who could actually carry a conversation. And what I saw from her friends who went, grew up in other places, they avoided adults like the plague. We would have friends come over and they didn't want to talk to me and my husband, and we were like trying to engage, and they're like, your parents are so weird. and so, but she had great relationships with her friends' parents because, she wasn't afraid of adults, or adults were supportive and kind and encouraging in her life. So that is I didn't expect that. It's pretty wild. And then as a high school student, even though she did not like go on and become a violinist, she had a really solid music base, and she could sing on tune. She could play. She could do a lot of things, and she might not see herself as that type of artist, but that kind of beauty and sense of harmony was inherent in everything that she did. And she noticed, like, oh, that's so interesting how when I attack this problem in physics, like my other friends, like they don't think the same way that I do. They're trying to come at it from this linear, and she could put it together in a different way.
Yeah.
Because she just has this different aesthetic. And that was a really critical piece. And she did fine. She adjusted, did great, went on to college, and she's about to graduate actually in a month.
Well,
She'll be graduating from college. She chose to go get her 4-year nursing degree.
okay.
And so she's already got a job, a place to stay, and, she's about to get on her way as an adult. And we never would have predicted that for her in terms of a profession. We don't understand where it came from, but it was something that was completely uniquely her. And it was very hard, and she stuck with it. So that sort of tenacity, even though it was really hard and she struggled through organic chemistry and like some of those, classes that were just challenging, she did it. And now she's like doing really well.
Do you think that had anything to do with the self-directed
Yeah,
education?
absolutely. 100%. Just being confident that it doesn't matter if it's hard. If I really want to do it
Right.
and I like it, I'm going to figure it out
Oh,
and I'm going to do it. So you don't give up, and you don't feel that sense of, there's something wrong with me, or I'm not cut out for this, or whatever. So if that's like really what her heart's desire was in this path, and you're able to somehow persevere through it all.
what I'm hearing is resiliency, and I feel like that's what I see in my own children is they have a greater sense of resiliency for interpersonal challenges, for their own attempts to create, or like Theo used to get really frustrated and just quit something. And now, since he's been here for 2 years now, I see him persevere to completion on things that he wants to bring into the world. And they're not huge things or independent Lego projects or something a fort or something he's building out in the yard, but he just doesn't get discouraged
Right.
like he used to.
Yeah.
So what would you say to a prospective parent who maybe is on the fence about whether or not Waldorf is right for their children or child?
Yeah, I would say, there are so many different educational approaches, and this one just brings a way for people to think outside the box. And so you're getting so much value for approaching an education and approaching these different subjects from all different angles. So the arts are infused, and so everything that you do, there is that composure that you are an artist in your life,
Mm-hmm.
whether, it's not necessarily like as a painter,
Mm-hmm.
but you're able to create and transform, bring beauty, bring joy into everything that you do. And for me, that, I don't know, the success of being a confident person going out into the world, it doesn't matter so much the academic direction that you go in. So that is what, if that is your approach in life to have a confident, resilient, successful human being, then this is a school for you.
I completely agree. And personally, I want my kids to be better. I want them to be more confident problem solvers than test takers.
Right.
That's what I'm looking for.
And to be able to do stuff with your
Yeah.
hands, like it's not just thinking. You can, we have all these other things at our disposal. And
Hmm.
so we forget that we're also made to be doers.
Yes.
And the experiential education that this approach offers, you can no, you can use your auditory skills, you can use your visual skills, you can use your body, you can use all these different modalities to bring it together into one picture. So it really meets all learners, is what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
not
Feels like it.
just a lecture.
Yeah. I mean, I was a little bit when Theo was telling me about knitting. When I heard, I was like, or handwork. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, that's cute. And then we went and did a handwork class, Courtney and I, one night. And who is it, the handwork teacher?
Katie?
Katie.
Uh-huh.
She was showing us how they incorporate geometry and arithmetic into this hands-on and storytelling, and it just like I was like, oh my gosh, like yeah, of course this is all for my kid. This is not just some quaint little skill that he's
Yeah, this
learning that he can
old-fashioned
no,
like
like this
thing.
is
Yeah.
and that holistic, that integrated approach to learning, like that's how it sticks. That's how these lessons stick. Last thing I would ask you, I'm just kind of curious, and what's your engagement with Steiner's material and anthroposophy itself?
Hmm. Well, it is definitely his approach at child development is very practical. I mean, of course, there are some very, big concepts and
Mhm.
theories that are out there, but he makes some of these very practical that you can employ. So it's common sense, really. So it does help you understand the developing human being throughout the stages. And of course, he's got a million different ways to work on yourself in meditative exercises, artistic exercises, movement. There's so many different ways that you can just improve yourself. So that part is really critical. And we do a lot of study as a faculty and in looking at who these children are. So we call it like child study, but we also look at just his writings in general about all kinds of things, how human beings can learn and grow and live together. And so I find that practice of looking at this big picture and then looking at these, pinpointed like tools that you can use and try and experiment with to be really helpful. And you read something and then you glean something new out of it no matter how many times you read it. You kind of go back and read it again and you're like, oh, now I understand a little bit more than what I did before. So it is a very philosophical sort of approach, but it's practical and kind of like a scientific way of looking at the world that makes sense. So for me, like it does kind of seem to flow differently.
Hmm. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think he seemed like an incredible man, and I'm so grateful to be just immersed in this world that He's helped bring into fruition for our children. Keep coming back to this. What Rob told me about, the underlying principle behind Steiner's education is to create children who can end war.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, I've said this many
Wouldn't that
times.
be great? Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great? Well, thank you so much, Miss Kristen,
Sure.
just for being here with our kids. Um, I I thank God or whatever it is that's out there that brought Waldorf into my life every day for dropping my kids off here, because I know that they are, as Leah was saying in the last conversation, that if they're not with me, I want them at Waldorf. And that's because of the teachers
Yeah.
like you that are here. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'll say there's something to be said about when your child wants to come to school
Yeah.
and they're sick and they want to come and you have to say, no, you cannot go today. That does not happen.
Yeah, I've experienced it here, but nowhere else.
Yeah, nowhere else. This is like they love it so much they never want to leave.
It's so true. It's
Yeah.
so true. Yeah. Well, thank you again, and yeah, keep up the good work.
Thank you.